Hey everyone, welcome to Logan Smosh Pig. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. I know what you need, some more rock and read. Today we'll read chapter 17 and chapter 18 of Iron Man, written by the riffmaster Tony Iommi. Chapter 17 is called Now Under New Management. Here we go. The record company switched us from Fontana to one of their other labels, Vertigo Records. They pushed it more because it was a new label with more progressive acts. But we didn't have a lot of contact with them. They only wanted to talk to the manager. At least, that's what we were told. Sometimes you'd see people from the label turn up, but you wouldn't know who they were. The marketing people made sure the album came out on Friday the 13th, February 1970. We did interviews around the release, but that ended after Patrick Meehan took over management from Jim Simpson. He stopped us doing press because us being unavailable for interviews made it more of a special thing. We hardly had any radio play because the only one who played us was John Peel. Even so, the album sold 5,000 copies in the first week after release, thanks to underground word of mouth, especially in the places in which we had built up a following by playing live. The press hated us, and we got slagged left, right, and center. You obviously got concerned, but it's not like we thought, oh, we're going to change the music then. The album was selling, so obviously we had done something right. We believed in what we did, and we loved it, so there was nothing else we could do apart from carry on with what we were doing. Only when grunge became popular and all those musicians said that Black Sabbath was a great influence did we become the flavor of the month, or flavor of the time. So here we were, reading good things about ourselves going, hang on, what happened? They can't write good things. Because we always said, as soon as they start writing good things about us, we better give up. The Single Evil Woman didn't do much, but the album went to number 8. Jim Simpson had booked us a lot of gigs before it came out, and we were still honoring them for something like 20 pounds, next to nothing. We said to him, hang on, how many more of these gigs are we going to be doing? Oh, we've got months of these to go. It was getting silly. Even the people who ran the clubs we played at were going, you should be getting more than this. What are you doing playing here? We thought, well, this. We've done enough. So when heavyweight manager Don Arden called telling us he was interested in working with us, we went up to London to see him. Wilf Pine picked us up in a Rolls Royce. Wilf was a nice bloke when you knew him, but on the other hand, he was quite vicious. Hell, I've heard tasty stories about what he did for Don Arden. Everything looked really heavy around Don. You saw lots of gangster-like characters floating around. We got to his office, and it was a bit overpowering, with Don going, you're going to be great. You're going to have billboards up everywhere. I'm going to get you to the top. And so on. He went, sign here. We just couldn't do that. It was all too bombarding, so we came away thinking, oh God, what are we going to do now? He'll probably have us killed. He kept getting in touch with us, arranging to take us out to dinner and all that sort of business. He never let go. Then one day, Wilf got in touch. He said, I've got another guy that wants to meet you. I'm going to bring him up to Birmingham. It was Patrick Meehan. He seemed a lot calmer than Arden and said the things we wanted to hear. You got an album out, nobody's pushing the record, you should get better gigs. All that stuff sounded good to our ears. Instead of being up on the billboards, we just wanted to be out playing. He just had the right way about it at the time, so we ended up signing with Patrick Meehan. Looking back at it now, it was quite strange that Wilf, who worked for Arden, would suggest Meehan to us. Wilf probably thought, oh well, they don't want Don, but maybe they're interested in Patrick. Which we were, but we didn't know how close the relationship between Arden and Meehan really was. In the past, Patrick Meehan's dad had worked for Don Arden, so there certainly was a connection. Welf wrote a book a few years ago. There's a picture of me and him in it, and then on the other side of the page, there's one of Wilf and John Gotti, then the head of the New York Mafia. I thought, hell, how did I get mixed up in this? Patrick Meehan had learned the ropes from his dad, who also had a management company. It was all very much roses at first. Meehan talked a good talk, and in the early days, he really got things going. He was the one who got us to America. The whole thing changed for us. We were traveling in private jets everywhere. Anytime we wanted anything, we'd just phone him up. I want to buy a new car. He'd go, oh, okay, what car? In my case, a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce or whatever. Where is it? I'd tell him where it was. How much is it? I'd tell him how much it was. I'll send them a check and I'll arrange to get the car over. And that was it. If I wanted to buy a house, where is the house? How much is it? And I got the house. That's how we lived. But we never saw any significant amounts of physical cash, even though there was a lot of it about. We got some money put into the bank, but not a lot. But for us, coming from where we came from, a few £100 in the bank was brilliant. I believe that we never really knew how much money we actually made. We had accountants involved with us, but we never really questioned what their role was or who they were taking instructions from. Oh, it's a big accountancy firm. It must be all right. We knew nothing at all about the business side of things. When we went down to the office, it was always, come in, alls. Great. By the way, sign these papers. It's basically so-and-so. I'll tell you about it, all from the accountant. And you'd think it was all above board. But I liked Meehan. We all liked him at first, and we believed in him. Well, that's the end of Chapter 17, so let's move on to Chapter 18. Chapter 18 is called Getting Paranoid. Here we go. After recording Black Sabbath, we immediately started writing songs for our second album. Some of them were written when we were on the road in Europe, like War Pigs. When we played that grim place in Zurich, we jammed a lot, and that's where the initial idea came from. Later during rehearsal, we turned it into a song. We had writing sessions in whatever rehearsal place we used at the time, putting tracks together. We also did some work for Paranoid in Monmouth and Wales, because we wanted to go somewhere where we could lock ourselves away. We were one of the first bands there after Dave Edmunds. At the other places, we'd have to go in and then go home, but here we could all be together and around each other all the time. The recording of the Paranoid album went pretty quick. We went back to Regent Sound working with Roger Bain again. It didn't take much more than 3 or 4 days, just a bit longer than the first one. Because we were in a fight a couple nights before that, I recorded that album with a great big black eye. It was the days of mods and rockers, and we were playing at this seaside resort. We had finished, and Geezer went out to make a phone call. He soon came rushing back in, going, "Hell! Loads of skinheads trying to get me. They're all waiting for us to come out." We went out to see what was happening, and it was serious stuff. Ozzy grabbed a hammer, and I said, "Who is the one that got you then, Geezer?" He pointed at some guy and said, "It was him." I went down and bang! I hit this bloke, and then they all came from nowhere. Horrible. But here in the midst of it then, fighting, some bloke got me around the neck and I shouted, "Ozzy, hit him with the hammer." Ozzy hit him, and at the same time he got jumped from behind and he slammed the bloody hammer backwards over the shoulder in that bloke's face. It was brutal. They were wearing these big metal-tipped boots and we were getting kicked in the face with them. We managed to get away, but we were a bloody mess. Ron Woodward, my old bass-playing neighbor, had driven us to the gig because he had just bought this new car. We jumped in screaming, "Quick, drive! Get away!" But he took off like a slug on Valium, with us screaming our heads off, big black eyes, blood everywhere. "Put your foot down! Drive! Drive!" All these skinheads were rushing down the hill, catching up with us, bats in hand, and Ron was making a getaway in slow motion. It turned out he was afraid to speed because you're not supposed to do that with a brand new car. We got away, but it took us ages to get home because he drove so slowly. I finally walked in the house and Mum was in the bedroom. "How did the show go?" I opened the door. "Oh, great." Lyrically, the album Paranoid was political, or certainly War Pigs was. That wasn't because of any negative reactions to the supposed occult first album, because we never ever regretted what we've done. It just happened that way. But not all of Black Sabbath was, for lack of a better word, occult, and not all of Paranoid was political. War Pigs actually started off as a song called Walpurgis, which suggests it might have been a supernatural song. This is not necessarily the case. Maybe it was just a working title with no lyrics written for it whatsoever. I don't know why Geezer changed it from Walpurgis to War Pigs. The lyrics were definitely his department. I always liked what he did, so I never questioned him. Roger Bain and Tom Allom speeded up the ending of War Pigs. When we first heard that, we thought, that's strange. Why would they do that? But we had no say in it in those days. We smoked a lot of dope, so that might be why some of the lyrics are a bit unusual. Like Iron Man, which came from a comic about a robot which became alive. I suppose there was a serious thought behind that. Really, that somebody living couldn't get out of that body, couldn't get out of this thing. And look at Fairies Wear Boots. What a lyric! But nobody questioned it. People accepted it. After we recorded all the tracks, Roger said, "We don't have enough. Can you come up with another song? Just a short track?" "Oh, yeah, I suppose." The others popped out for lunch, and I started playing Paranoid. When the others came back, I played it to them, and they liked it. Geezer came up with the lyrics. I can't remember if Ozzy had any input in that one. When we'd start playing a new song, Ozzy would improvise and just sing anything, flying out the window or whatever, and probably wouldn't even know what he was singing. And then Geezer would go, "Oh yeah, I can use that." Geezer would do the lyrics before we started recording, or in some cases, even in the studio. And then it would be up to Ozzy to get it right. He would come up with the melody. He'd follow the riff in a lot of cases. I don't know how Geezer came up with the idea for the Paranoid lyrics, but he had quite a wide imagination. He would sit and listen to the music for a bit, and sometimes he'd want it to be quiet. He'd write a few things down, cross some out, write something else, and then he'd give it to Ozzy, and of course Ozzy would go, "What the... does this mean, Geese?" Paranoid. I doubt we even knew what the word meant at the time. Ozzy and me went to the same lousy school, where we certainly wouldn't be around words like that. We knew what meant and piss off, but paranoid? That's why we left it to Geezer, because we considered him to be the intelligent one. All our tracks were 5 minutes plus. We had never done a 3-minute track, so Paranoid was like a throwaway. This'll fill the gap. We never thought it was going to be a hit. Out of all of our stuff, that's always the one that people put on compilations, using TV themes and in films, and it took probably 4 minutes to write. It's that basic, simple thing, that catchy theme, that seems to appeal to people. Paranoid even brought us to Top of the Pops. We were very nervous doing that, because it was such a prestigious thing in Britain to be on that show. We were probably the loudest band they ever had on. I didn't like the atmosphere there at all. With the BBC people telling you what to do and all this rubbish, things came to a head when I said, "Get that light off of me, it's driving me mad." We can't turn that off. I was like, "Well, get it off." Of course, I played in the dark then. We never did it again after that. We weren't really a Top of the Pops band anyway. If the Black Sabbath album with the inverted cross on its sleeve caused some controversy, Paranoid did its best to top that. At first, we were going to call the album War Pigs, and they had done the album cover up with a guy with a shield and a sword, the War Pig. But then, they wouldn't accept that title, and changed it to Paranoid. We asked, "What's that got to do with that cover?" But it was too late to change it because they needed a title. Quick. No, we can't use War Pigs. What are we going to call it? It's got to be Paranoid. And that was it. Well, that wraps up Chapter 18. Let me know what you thought of both chapters in the comments below. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Till then, rock on.